So as you can already see, 1-5 is talking about midpoints in segment, and then there's a new word there. Congruence. Congruent you can look at as a mathematical term that means kind of more than equal a little bit. It means similar and equal is really what it means. Okay? The symbol for congruence is right there. It's basically an equal sign with a squiggle over the top. The equal sign obviously means that you have two values that are equal, right? This little squiggle, just a little squiggle, means similar, meaning same shape. So we're saying it's the same shape and it's the same measure. That's really what congruence means, all right? And it's because it's similar and equal, basically thrown together is all that is. So the definition of midpoint right there, very straightforward. So it says here in our picture, M is the midpoint of this segment. Obviously, if this was a line, would we be able to find a midpoint? If this kept going in both directions, would you be able to find a midpoint? No, you'd never be able to, right? That's why it's a segment. It just stops. If PM, and what does that mean when there's nothing over the top again? PM, there's nothing there. There's no segment. There's no line. It means distance. So it's saying the distance from P to M, maybe that's an 8. For M to be the midpoint, what's the distance from M to Q have to be? It has to be 8. Do you agree then M is in the middle? Yeah, it would have to be. Okay. And are they similar shapes? Yes, they're both segments, correct? And do they have the same measure? Yes, they do. So that's what congruence talks about, all right? And obviously it wouldn't have to be 8, that's just what I chose, all right? So that's really what midpoint means. So midpoint formula, you can use that one if you want. If you're on a number line, this is how it would work. For example, to calculate the midpoint of AC, so here's A right there, there's C right there, segment going right on through there. What it says, what you can simply do is add the 2 points together and divide by 2. Have you ever done that before, added 2 numbers together and divided by 2? Have you ever had to do that before? Yeah, what were you finding when you did that? Not the median, the mean. Okay, kind of the median. If you have to get in the middle there, yeah, sometimes you do that. But really it's the mean. If I gave you 2 quiz scores and I wanted the average, you would add them up and divide by 2 because there were 2 of them. And that's the exact same thing you want to do here. Add them together. So A is -5 plus C is 2. But I have to divide by 2 because there's 2 numbers. Okay. You notice how this is different from that distance? Distance was subtract. Take absolute value. This is add. So what do we got there? -3 over 2. Do you agree with that? Well, how could you write -3 over 2? That's really -1 and half. So they're saying if I went to -1 1/2, does that look like the midpoint to you? It does, doesn't it? Yeah, that looks like it's right in the middle. Okay? Because that distance and that distance would be the same. Is that something you could find out? Yes, you could use the distance formula if you wanted to. That would give you that answer. Is that what we're looking for here? No, but it's a good idea. So why don't you try AD right now on your own? And maybe we'll put that answer over here. Okay? See what you get. Where some people get confused is they say the formula says A and B, and this one says A and D. Well, the A and B up there, you see how it's lowercase? It's just saying the first one is A and the second one is B. That's all that's saying, okay? Down here, it's capital A, capital H. You gotta go find it. So there it is, and there it is. Obviously, you don't have to draw this in. I'm doing it so you can see it. So it'd be -5 again, right? That'd be the first one, and now plus. Well, B ends up here is 4 divided by 2. And what we got there? -1 over 2. So that means if I went right there, you agree that's -1 1/2? Does that look like midpoint to you? It does. So that works pretty slick, doesn't it? Basically, you just add the 2 together, divide by 2. It should give you that middle number. Now that works really well if it's on a number line. Basically, you do a very similar thing if it's not on a number line. You just have to do it twice. You have to do it for X, and you have to do it for Y. Okay? So it's very similar formula, except you have to do it for both of them. And notice right there. Do you see how this could kind of be like the A plus B right there? Right? It's the same formula, isn't it? Except there's 2 of them, one for X and one for Y. Who remembers what I called that? Those little numbers right there. Subscript. Very good. Whoever said that. I heard that from somebody. Now, does that have a lot of bearing on the calculation? Is that 2? Like, am I going to take something times 2 or divide it by 2 because of that little 2 that I'm pointing to in those problems? No, that's just showing me there's a difference. How about that 2? Is that 2 going to affect this calculation? Yes. So make sure you understand the difference between the 2's here. Okay? And a lot of times what I like to do is actually just label them. First X, first Y, second X. Wow, that's a great Y. Okay, second Y. And if you do that, then you can substitute the information in. So if I'm going to follow this, it says take X sub 2, which according to me is 7, plus X sub 1, which is negative 5, and then I'm supposed to divide it by 2. Okay. Over here, it says to take Y sub 2, which is right there, right? And it says that's negative 3 right there, plus Y1, which is 3, and I have to divide by 2. You notice how the way they have this set up, it's going to give me an ordered pair. Does that make sense? That the midpoint of 2 ordered pairs would be an ordered pair? Yeah. What does it mean to add a negative, though? 7 plus a negative 5. Really kind of means just subtract, right? And well, what is that? 7, because this is, remember, that's a grouping symbol, right? That division bar. It's one we forget about a lot, but it is. It says do numerator and do denominator separately and then divide. And we can do that. That's what? Just a 2 over 2, right? What's this one, though? This numerator is 0. Okay. Now, both of these, and that's the reason I like this one, both of these lead to a very good question as to what do those end up being. How about 2 over 2? That really just ends up being 1. Very good. Now, 0 over 2, this is always a big question. Is it 0 or is it undefined? Right? 0 is, it's always one of those two, right? So is it 0 or is it undefined? It is 0. When is it undefined? When the 0 is in the denominator. And keep that in mind. Through all the math classes as you go through, this will hold true. Dividing by 0 is the one thing not defined in mathematics. Okay, so very good. It's 0. All right. So dividing by 0, the one thing not defined in mathematics, and in some other classes that becomes hugely important to know that 0 in the denominator is a problem. All right. And so, well, let's see if we believe that. Okay. So there are our 2 points. Do you agree with that? Negative 5, 3, and 7, negative 3. And where's this supposed to be? 1, 0, huh? What do you think? Yeah. Right. Now, for those of you that are visual, here's how some people actually do this problem. Some people don't like formulas, right? So here's what they do. They decide, well, how am I going to get from there to there? They say, if I want to do that, I've got to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They say, I got to go down 6, right? And they say, then I got to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And instead of going down 6 and over 12, what do you think they do? They only go half of that. They go down, they figure out, well, if I'm there and I go down 3 and over how much? Well, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, hey, look at that. I'm right there. Okay? And that's how they do it. Okay? Depends on how you want to do it. Would you get to the same point doing it both ways? Yeah, you should. Okay? Because really that's what you're doing anyways. Right? So formula works, picture works, whatever you want to do. Okay, are there any questions so far? No, it's believable so far, right? Add them together, divide by 2. Ooh, why don't you read this one quick and see if you can tell me what's different. Any ideas why this one's different, say, than the last problem? Yeah, John? Yeah. Back here. Whoop, lost my thing. I gave you the 2 endpoints, and I asked for middle. Now I gave you one of the endpoints, gave you the middle, and I'm asking for the other endpoint. I think this can be done algebraically, but I think it's way easier just to do it as a picture. So once you get those points on your picture right there, get D, which is -1, -2, and Q, which is 3, 2, on your graph. We're going to have to figure out where R is. So based on that information, it's saying D is the midpoint, correct? So do you think R is going to be over here somewhere? What's that? Oh, look at that. Some people paying attention. All right. Is that a little better? Okay. Now let's try it. All right. So now we're saying D is the midpoint. So again, answer my question. Is R going to be over here somewhere? No. Is R going to be down here somewhere? Over here? No, let's face it. It better be down there somewhere, right? Again, you can do it algebraically. But I think, why don't we just figure out how long is it going to take me to do that, and then just do it again? Wouldn't that give me where the other endpoint was going to be? So what am I going to do? 1, 2, 3, 4 down, right? And 1, 2, 3, 4 over. So just do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What do you think? Does D end up being the midpoint of that? Is that pretty good? Yeah. So where is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's at -5, -6. And what letter is it? It is R. Okay. Way easier to do it this way. Okay. How about any questions so far? We doing good? All right. This is the one I'm nervous about. Very similar to problems we had already, with one very small difference. Before it said between. Now it says it's the midpoint. Well, is U still between the X and Y then? Yeah, it just happens to be now. We know it is right in the middle. Right? Now, what did I have you do when we had similar problems before? I had you draw a picture. But now, got to be very careful. U has to be right in the middle. And some symbols you might want to get used to in geometry are what are called congruent marks. In mathematicians, we're not going to make this too complicated. They both have the same mark in it, right? Means they're the same. Okay, I could draw one over here. If I put the same mark in it, guess what? It's the same. If I put 2 in there, though, are all of those the same now? No, only the ones with the same symbols. Well, let's put the information in. X, Y. Do you agree that's the whole thing? Sure. 16x minus 6. UY. For x plus 9. They seem to have forgotten to give us some information. Okay, so I typed this up, so maybe I forgot to give you information. Huh? What's that? Yeah. Now it says solve for x and xy. Didn't I give you this before as well? Didn't I tell you what that was? I didn't do that here. Yeah. The same as what? Yeah. If you want to, could I write 4x plus 9 right here as well? Can I do that? Well, you can, but now what we have to do is we have to decide, does that help? Well, what did we do before? We took little piece plus little piece and set it equal to the whole thing. So does putting 4x plus 9 there help? It does. Let's do it. Let's add it together. See, we're adding them together because they're the same. Can I add the 4x and the 9 together? Ooh. Well, you could, but you'd be wrong. Right? That is 8x, 18. Uh-oh. That was weird. Smartboard kind of freaked out on me there. Variable on each side, number on each side. What I like to do when that happens is move the smaller variable. 8x. Let's subtract it over. Is this the only way to accomplish this problem? Not even close. It is a possibility. 18. 8x minus 6. Now here's another question that I think is pretty important. Could I, if I wanted to, divide everything by 8 right now? Is that algebraically legitimate? You can. Is it a good choice, though? No, don't do that. Do all your adding and subtracting first. We're trying to help you when we give you all these suggestions. So let's add 6. Left side is, and I'm just moving it over here because it's getting really low on the chalkboard. I see some of you kind of starting to go sideways in your chair to see. Equals 8x. Divide by 8. X is. Now remember, in geometry, you have to decide, do I even have to find x? Do they even care? Well, yes. Solve for x. Is that all they want? No. XY is what they would like. So it would probably be smart to substitute it in here if they want XY. You might want to substitute it in everywhere just to make sure that it works out. Okay? But if we substitute it in there, right, XY, whole thing, substitute the x with a 3. Anybody know 16 times 3 off the top of your head? 48, yep. Minus 6. XY is 42. I'm glad the smartboard hasn't freaked out since that one little freak out it had. Any questions? So if I substitute 3 into 4x plus 9, what should I get? If the whole thing's 42 and that's right in the middle, I better get 21, do you? Put 3 in, do you get 21? Yeah, you do. So is it believable? Yeah. So any questions on that? This one, I hope goes without saying, but we'll say it anyway. Segment bisector. Bisect something means, here's section is what sector. Bi means two sections. Okay, it's a segment bisector, so it cuts it into 2 sections. Here it will be equal sections. It can be a segment, a line, or a plane, or even really a ray. It can be just about anything that cuts through there. For example, does that right there cut this in half? Well, right now you don't know, but now you do. Cuts it in half. Could it be this line going that way? Sure. Could it be a line doing that? Yeah. Could it be a whole plane coming at the smartboard like this that cuts it in half? It could be. So you have a lot of possibilities. But the key is that it cuts it in half. Okay? It can't be just kind of in half. It has to be perfect. It has to hit basically the midpoint. And if it does that, it is a bisector of that segment. Okay? So yeah, a segment, line, or plane. Okay? Any questions?